I can still feel the knot in my stomach, the one that formed the moment my phone buzzed with a notification from the Ring doorbell. I was at my friend Sarah's wedding, trying to enjoy myself, but that single chime just knew how to ruin everything. My husband, Leo, was swamped at work. I knew he wouldn't be home. And we certainly weren't expecting anyone. So, driven by a nagging curiosity, I tapped the notification. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, on my doorstep, was my sister-in-law, Brittany, very pregnant, alongside my mother-in-law, Carol. And next to them? A small moving truck, with two men already unloading boxes. Not just a few boxes, mind you, but they're boxes. It was an assault on my sanity, a brazen act I still can barely wrap my head around. To understand the sheer audacity of that moment, you have to go back a few days. Carol and Brittany had dropped by, ostensibly for a visit. I hate these visits, to be honest. Carol and Brittany don't exactly like me, so I'm always on guard. But this time, they were exceptionally nice, complimenting my outfit, my hair, everything. It was unsettling. Then, out of nowhere, they started thanking me. Thanking me for my generosity, for taking in a pregnant and destitute Brittany. My generosity? I had no idea what they were talking about. Zero. I knew Brittany and her husband, Ethan, were super broke. They'd been evicted and were crashing at Carol's house, and Brittany was desperate to move out. I'd heard the subtle hints, of course, about how big my house was, just me and Leo. But never, not once, did I say they could move in. This house, it's mine. My parents left it to me before I married Leo, so it's not even marital property. It's my sanctuary. When I finally managed to ask them where they got this insane idea, they just beamed and said, "Leo told us." They were so confident, so absolutely certain, that Leo had assured them I had no problem with Brittany and Ethan staying until they got back on their feet. I was too stunned, too furious, to even argue. I just let them leave, my mind racing, counting the minutes until Leo walked through the door. When he did, I hit him with it immediately. "What did you tell your mother and sister?" He looked utterly bewildered, like I was speaking a foreign language. I explained, my voice shaking with anger, how Carol and Brittany believed he'd given them permission to move in. He wasn't guilty, he was genuinely confused, then stunned, then alarmed. He swore he never promised them anything. He admitted they'd been badgering him for weeks, hinting about my big house. Eventually, to get them off his back, he told them he would talk to me about it. He had talked to me, actually. And I'd said a resounding no. He thought his silence afterward would be enough, that they'd take the hint. He was tragically, spectacularly wrong. They'd taken his silence as confirmation. I didn't believe him at first. I couldn't. Leo had a history. He was a classic mama's boy, always struggling to set boundaries with his family. We'd had countless arguments over them trampling all over us. It took years, and a lot of emotional battles, to get him to grow a spine. I'd even contacted lawyers once, ready to walk away, all because of his family and his inability to stand up to them. He was just starting to get better, so when he said he'd only offered to talk to me, I immediately saw red. He should have known I'd never agree to it. Even saying those words was wrong, a crack in the fragile wall we'd built. So, I demanded proof. He called Carol and Brittany, put them on speaker. After a lot of hemming and hawing, they finally admitted that Leo hadn't expressly said I agreed. Their defense? A big misunderstanding. They claimed they thought he'd talk to me meant he was just going to inform me of their impending arrival. It was infuriating. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Oh, you'd be so wrong. Even after being told clearly that it wasn't happening, they refused to accept it. They started talking about what kind of nursery they'd set up in my house. I was beyond frustrated. When I asked why they thought this was still happening, they got defensive. They said they'd already made plans, and it would be cruel for me to deny them now. Brittany even had the nerve to say I should just go with the flow. I absolutely lost it. I yelled, told them there was no way, that they had no right to ignore my wishes in my house. We argued, and I hung up. For days, they didn't stop. The texts, the calls, nonstop. Calling me heartless, selfish, mean, cruel. Accusing me of going back on a promise I never made. They started bringing in other family members, who piled on, calling me a monster for letting a pregnant woman fend for herself. They even tried to use Leo, saying that since I married him, they had some right to my home. And the condescending nonsense about this misunderstanding being God's way of telling me to do a good deed for once, it was unbearable. It was all because Brittany wanted a 4-bedroom house like mine. Carol's place, where they were staying, only had 2 rooms. Brittany didn't want her baby sharing her room. She envisioned a separate nursery, a playroom, a big backyard for fresh air. My house, with its 2 offices, one for me, one for Leo, because we both work from home, was perfect for her grand plans. She'd even started mapping out which of my offices would become her nursery. I knew she'd never leave. She'd use the baby as an excuse, expect us to pay for everything. She'd always been jealous of me owning this house, making snide comments about how unfair it was that it was handed down to me while everyone else had to buy theirs. She never seemed to grasp I'd trade the house for my parents back in a heartbeat. So, seeing that moving truck, after all of that, was the last straw. I told the bride and groom I had to go, and I sped home, my hands shaking. Carol and Brittany looked a little spooked when I stomped toward them, but then they put on those sickly sweet smiles, acting like this was totally normal. They'd even gotten into my house somehow. Leo had given Carol a key ages ago, and I'd made him get it back. My theory is she'd made a copy of a copy. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Carol just smiled, moving Brittany's things in, dear. Just as planned. Apparently, they'd been to Target and Wayfair the day before, buying everything for the nursery. They thought they could just bring it all over, along with Brittany and Ethan's clothes, and it would be done. I was speechless. Then came the screaming match. I yelled at them to take their stuff and leave, or I'd call the cops. They screamed back that I was heartless, stressing Brittany out, hurting the baby. A lot of vicious things were said. And yes, I called the police. I had no choice. The aftermath was a hurricane of harassment. My phone exploded with calls and texts from the extended family. Carol and Brittany turned truly vile, accusing me of everything under the sun. Brittany even had the audacity to say that if anything happened to the baby, it would be my fault for causing her stress. I was called a heartless monster, a baby hater. I was going out of my mind. But then, something unexpected happened. Leo came home, already knowing what had occurred. I braced myself for his disappointment, for him siding with his family. Instead, he apologized. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said he would deal with them. He started making calls, and slowly, miraculously, the harassment dwindled. What I didn't know then was the full extent of his intervention. He called everyone and told them the truth. He debunked Brittany's lies about me being infertile and jealous. He told family members who sided with Carol and Brittany to either back off or take Brittany in themselves. No one volunteered. Then, he called Ethan, Brittany's husband. Ethan, the poor man, had been working 2 jobs, completely in the dark. He was a decent guy, trying to dig them out of the financial hole Brittany had created, having maxed out credit cards and gotten them evicted. When Leo told him everything, including how Brittany had just blown their last dollars on nursery purchases and the wasted moving truck, Ethan was horrified. They had a massive fight, and Ethan finally threw in the towel. He was done. He told Brittany he was divorcing her. Of course, Carol and Brittany blamed me for ruining her marriage. But Leo, my Leo, stood up for me completely. He had a huge fight with them, telling them he was done, too. He told me months of therapy had finally given him a wake-up call. That incident, with the moving truck, reminded him exactly what was at stake, what he stood to lose. He realized he needed to stand by the family he made with me. And honestly, seeing what happened to Ethan, being walked all over, might have been the final push he needed. Brittany will be a single mother soon. Ethan will take responsibility for the child, but not for her. She quit her job without consulting him, so no alimony. She'll have to work like a normal person. Carol is reportedly freaking out, realizing her daughter is about to become her permanent problem. They've both tried to reach out, promising to be better. But it's too late. Leo and I are done with them. We've both blocked them. And in a surprising twist, through all this chaos, we found out I'm 3 months pregnant. We hadn't planned on kids, but now we're both incredibly excited. My relationship with Leo has never been stronger. He's actively making amends, proving he's serious about being a partner who stands by me. It's a new experience, and I'm loving it. I guess the question is, after everything, after all the drama and the lies, was cutting them off completely the only way to find peace?